the one thing I did want to talk about is because I did call this WWE has a lot of bad blood. Which the one thing we will talk about today is Punk and Rollins and McIntyre. Before we get out of here, um, I want to mention something to you that I think might resonate with you. Um, I wasn't alive for it, obviously. Not calling you old, but I just wasn't alive for it. 97 SummerSlam, Undertaker, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels was a special guest referee. Michaels hit Taker with a chair on accident, which started their rivalry, which ended up in bad blood. Very iconic match and very iconic setup to what they did inside of Hell in a Cell at the In Your House Bad Blood pay per view. Um,
which is still the
okay.
best Hell in a Cell match, even though someone didn't get thrown off the top of it. Just saying.
You know, I love that first one. Um, I will say my favorite Hell in a Cell match. I know he's a lot of legal issues right now, but just talking about the time period and all that, I loved when Taker fought Brock in 2002.
Yeah, that was a good one.
They had a crazy like, but it was in the cage too. Like they
Mhm.
didn't go outside or anything. Like Undertaker did a suicide dive in that match. Like it's just like that. If you go back and watch that, that's a crazy
It's
Hell
a
in a
good one.
Cell. But that
Yeah.
first one is iconic, and there's not a
First was
lot
my favorite. The
you can't
debut of
top
Kane,
that.
like,
Yeah, where he rips the door off. Oh, yeah,
unbelievable.
it's too iconic. Anyway, to kind of get to where I was going, you have Punk and McIntyre, who are like, in my opinion, they're having rivalry of the year, and the reason why I say that is because it's literally just like two Twitter trolls going at it. It's out pettying the other, which I love. And they haven't even wrestled each other yet. But now they're incorporating Rollins into it, which we were supposed to get Punk and Rollins at WrestleMania. Punk got hurt, so it went to Rollins and McIntyre. And Rollins was still involved with the World Heavyweight Championship. That's how McIntyre won it. Um, and now he's coming back into it because Rollins basically was cost. He can't challenge for that world championship as long as Priest has the belt. And that was also because of CM Punk. I'm wondering almost, I posted it on the channel a little bit ago under the community tab a few days ago. I'm wondering almost, are we going to get some kind of a triple threat? Do we get some kind of special referee thing? It's kind of reminding me like shades of that time period where there was so like Brett and Sean had that feud, but
Who's
then
Brett? Who's Sean
Taker,
right now?
um, Sean's got to be Punk.
Which is hilarious
McIntyre's,
because Sean because Punk is such a Brett guy.
yeah, and McIntyre's Brett, and then I think Taker in this situation would be Rollins. So I almost think that we may get something. I know that Austin does make a good point. They did break the gentleman's agreement, but it was when they did that promo at the beginning of the show, that's one of the
Priest
reasons
is
why
not gonna
Rollins
make
was
it past
mad.
Gunther, so that
Yeah.
agreement's gonna go out the window.
Yeah, and Priest did say, because of the interference, I'm going to give you another shot after I beat Gunther. So they kind of did move past the agreement, which, again, that's a good point. But still, Punk did cost Seth Rollins the world title.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm wondering
Just to spite Drew.
almost exactly. And I'm wondering almost, do we get a triple threat, or does WWE decide to do Punk and McIntyre at SummerSlam and have Seth be the referee to set up? Because everyone thinks right now that it might be Punk and McIntyre inside of like a Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood. Do you think that Rollins does something to cost Punk, and maybe they kind of make him a little tweener and they do a Hell in a Cell match?
I think Rollins isn't gonna be in the picture with this.
Really?
I think that was a drop. I think the Rollins thing's a drop. I think Rollins is gonna work with other stories and figure something out soon. I think the story is in Drew and Punk, and I think they're gonna work this angle for a minute, and I think it's gonna work up to eventually one of them wins the championship, probably Punk. I think Punk the end. I'm kind of booking to Mania, but I think Punk finds a way to win the championship and takes it into WrestleMania. And I think the overall arcing story of these three will end with Seth versus Punk in at Mania 1-on-1.
I could see that. Wonder why we're not getting the. I guess this froze too because I was trying to put the chat up. But
Yeah.
Austin said actions have consequences, and that's what Rollins said to Punk. Now that is a good point, but the one thing I do want to point to, no pun intended, is
Mhm.
that Rollins came out to save Adam Pearce because McIntyre was going to attack Adam Pearce for the whole suspension thing. Let's see if we fix the. There we go. We got it back up now. Um, he was gonna, try to apologize to the referees. McIntyre didn't want to do that, and Rollins came out to make that save. So I'm wondering, do they keep Rollins in this feud because realistically, SummerSlam, there's not too many opponents that are really open for him to have a program with so short a notice. So I'm wondering, do
What
they make
what
him the ref and he
they can
accidentally
also
screws over
do
Punk?
they can do Punk versus Rollins at SummerSlam, and a suspended Drew McIntyre like, so Drew has to start getting the leg up on Punk a little bit here and start screwing him out of some stuff. So I think
Yeah.
that's where it's going to start going, and I think possibly Mania is a triple threat. Who knows? But um, I think the story now, I can definitely see him going Punk and Seth because Drew's now suspended. He can't be around, so that opens up Punk, that opens up a returning Punk, and it opens up Rollins. They kind of feud for a while. Then Punk, maybe even Rumble. Punk's about to win the Rumble, and Drew screws him out of it. You know what I mean?
That's a
And
a great point also. And hearing Rollins call back, it was electric because that's Punk said the exact same thing to McIntyre, actually, that actions have consequences.
yeah,
So, oh, wow, that just made me even like it a lot more.
yeah.
Um,
And the biggest problem with all this, it's more entertaining than the world title picture.
oh, for 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
I always looked at it as, whenever you got Punk in there and what they've been doing with McIntyre. I mean, this is like the storyline that's been guiding Raw along through the summer, which I've loved. And it's not to discredit like Priest as the world champion because I think he is doing good work with the title. I like the presentation with him as the world champion, but I do think I don't want to call him a transitional champion because he has held the title for a while, but I
They're
think
trying to
they
make it
are
seem like he's not, but he is.
he's gonna drop the belt to Gunther
Yes.
at SummerSlam, and that's the right call. And I think Judgment Day screws him over.
Yes. And then
And
Gunther's going to be also a transitional champion because everyone's
we,
clamoring for Gunther to be champion, but he's not going to hold it very long. You think Gunther's the world champion going into WrestleMania?
I think they can pull that off. I do. I think that they can have him hold the world championship. I mean,
So do you think
okay.
Gunther can gravitate a strong enough story that can rival Punk, Rollins, and Drew McIntyre with no title all the way until Mania?
Well, I think it
I
also could.
don't.
I think it could be said. You know, you've had McIntyre. He wanted to be the world champion. Rollins was the world champion. Their storyline already kind of has had the world championship involved with it so much that at this point, I would rather see fresh faces in that world title scene. So to
But
me,
you're kind of
oh
also
god,
doing a thing where like Swerve Strickland's your champion, but he's not really wrestling your top guys in your company. He's wrestling
hmm
the higher second tier card guy, and you're caring more about other people in their roster because they're bigger draws. So you have your bigger draws and storylines, and then your world champion doesn't seem as valuable because he's not beating top people.
yeah, I think that's a fair point to make. I almost think that maybe they do Gunther and Rollins at Survivor Series. Like they'll include those guys in it a little bit. I almost, when it comes to this rivalry, I think they are going to have to eventually like fight. Obviously, that's what it's brewing to. But I'm also not really sold. I love CM Punk. I don't think he should be world champion. It might be a hot take, but like I just really don't want to see him with a
CM
belt.
Punk is
You know,
going to be a world champion at a main event at professional in WrestleMania at some point very, very soon. He talked too
Maybe.
much crap to not be that, unless Drew screws him out of a Mania moment this year. Like, that's if you really want to stretch this out. The one thing Punk has cried about the whole time he was in the company, the whole time he was out of the company, is how do you not have a guy like me in your main event of WrestleMania? I'm the best that the guy's ever been in that company. And
Mhm.
then he finally is about to get it, and Drew screw. Like, Punk does all this stuff to screw Drew, and then Punk's about to get his WrestleMania main event, and Drew screws him out of it.
And that's why I think that, maybe they do something they do something
Do.
like that. But I think that adding Rollins to it is gonna add another layer, and that layer is gonna add more so time for maybe Punk and McIntyre not to be in a ring together so much, that maybe they get, um, a Punk and Rollins match at Bad Blood, and that's like the big match for Bad Blood. And maybe you can have McIntyre instead be like, well, he's your problem now. I got what I wanted if he beats Punk at SummerSlam, and then he wrestles Gunther for the world
Yeah.
title. I think that that could be something, and maybe you know, th- I do have faith in what Triple H and them have done. So I think in a way they could do something where they have McIntyre and Gunther for the world title, and somehow this Rollins and Punk beef like gets in the way of that too.
I'll say
Um,
one thing. Say what you want about
but
CM Punk, but anytime the guy's in charge of creative, it's good.
oh yeah,
This story's gonna be great.